Welcome to One Bite at a Time, a podcast where I, Chef Wu,
and I, Chef V,
discuss the hospitality and culinary sector from both our professional and personal experiences.
and touch on all the things that make us smile, cry, laugh, shout, whilst trying to figure out how to set the standard one bite at a time. On today's episode,
Yes.
we thought we'd get raw, transparent, open with you all, and just discuss the real inner workings of life as a chef, the real business behind what it is to be a chef in Nigeria.
And we're not here to talk about what you hear all the time. We're not here to sugarcoat anything or make anyone kind of feel sorry for us. It's just about having open, honest conversations, and opening up the floor for people to maybe have a bit of understanding and a better viewpoint into what we do and how we do what we do.
Exactly. So I think before we delve into that, let's paint a picture for our listeners, our viewers, about where we currently are as an industry, what we can notice in terms of maybe things that have happened, things that are changing, moving in industry.
Okay, so I think one thing that we can say is happening a lot, especially in Lagos, is the incessant opening of restaurants all over Lagos. I say all over Lagos, so it's really on the island. VI and Lekki to be precise. But with all these restaurants open, you assume that with that would come opportunities for chefs, whether it's chefs out of culinary schools, chefs that are trying to work their way up the ladder. But I don't think that is necessarily what is then actually the end product of these establishments opening.
I think it'll be funny to do a play-by-play on the ratio of, let's say, number of places that are opening compared to, is there really been a rise in quality opportunities for chefs in terms of job openings, and it's in all the different levels of a chef, from head chef, executive, all the way down to line chefs. You know, I would think that the market would be highly competitive in trying to pull the current resource that we have, but it still seems that people are looking for work.
Yes. My take on that is I feel like, yes, people are looking for work, but also it's going to sound really harsh, so brace yourselves. The talent isn't matching the amount of restaurants that is opening up.
Agreed.
And the people that are opening restaurants don't respect the craft.
Agreed.
Enough.
Agreed.
So they want people that are going to come in, bend over backwards, do all the work, because without a chef, there is no restaurant. But not credit them. So I'll use this example. You go to restaurants in the UK, in America, anywhere else in the world, most places in the world, and the restaurant is not really ever about the owner. It's always about the chefs. It's not the same here. People are opening restaurants so they can say, I own it.
Yes, I'm the face.
Okay, you're the face. What can you cook? You're the face. What can you do 20 covers in 1 hour?
Yeah. I would want to expand on that, because I would say with the amount of the amount of restaurants that open, we still see very much, okay, we're only going to give the top roles to the international ones that we can bring in, whether it's, you know, we've talked about this topic before, but that's still a very current factor. And then the chefs or talent that come out of Nigeria, one, you have the ones who are experienced enough to take on higher positions who aren't filling those roles. Then you also have, I would say, the bigger pool of people who maybe come out of culinary school expecting high positions when they really should be starting from the bottom up. So there just seems to be a big mismatch in in all the levels, I would say. So there needs to be a bit more of a understanding of how to actually fit the puzzle. It can't just be opening these restaurants without having an idea of what the current players is at. And I think that's what we even discussed at our live podcast when we spoke about investing in hospitality training and having, you know, proper proper training, proper infrastructure put in place where we're matching the talent with
the establishments and the places that are opening. I agree with that. I think that's a major thing.
Yeah. I think another one would also just be, I've really noticed a trend or pattern, let's say a pattern in a lot of people wanting to open their own food businesses. See your smile. You know, it just seems to me that a lot of people feel like being a private chef or having your own business, whether it's private dining, fine dining, I want to be a fine dining chef, is the only career opportunity there is. Yeah. And maybe people have been scarred by working in restaurants. They don't feel valued. Or also maybe I've also noticed the decline in being a home chef, for example. People don't want to work. Home cooks. People don't want to work in people's homes. So it just seems like the only opportunity at hand is to launch your business.
Launch your own business. And I think, okay, so this thing about starting your own business, I feel like it's also because, again, goes back to a lack of respect for the craft. People see food businesses as, oh, I'm looking for money. This is not working. Can you go, oh, I will start selling rice. Mm-hmm. It's more than just selling rice. How do you cost it? Mm-hmm. What is your profit margin? How are you paying your staff? How are you buying the ingredients? Mm-hmm. How are you taking stock of stock?
How are you providing a service?
All of that,
you know,
part of it. You cannot just wake up one day and sell, right? Well, you can, but
you know, it's funny. It makes me think about those videos when you ask people what they are and they say, I'm an entrepreneur. Like, okay, everyone wants
entrepreneuring.
Everyone wants to be an entrepreneur. Yeah. But do you actually know what it means to have a business? And it's not for everyone. You know,
we've said that.
That's the point of an industry. You have people who thrive off working for others and providing values to already an existing idea and adding value to that idea. You know, it's like you said, it's a lot of work. There's benefits of working in a company or an establishment. You get to go home and switch your brain off, for example, you know, so you have to find what works for you. I've really noticed that everyone wants to have I get so many DMs, you know, I want to be a fine dining chef. Can you help me? And
and even so, I think another thing to consider is maybe these people don't know the other subcategories of the industry enough. So they're just going by what they're seeing or what's being fed to them. If the people that are the most visible are the ones that are your private chefs, then the assumption is that I go to culinary school I become a private chef. Even those people that you see that are private chefs, they've gone through the motions. They've tried one business. They've tried this type of service. They've tried another thing. They've tried working on the people and they've found what works for them. Mm-hmm. And the first and foremost thing that you need to do is have vision for yourself. Don't try and build on other people's visions. Don't say this chef is doing that, so that's what I want to do that. Mm-hmm. That is not how you get to where you are trying to be. So I always say to people, like, even when I speak to people that come to me like, oh, I want to intern with you and I'd like to work with you. What is your vision for yourself? Exactly. What do you want? What do you want out of this? Because how you respond to me will determine if I can help you or if if you are a walking red flag and I need to run. So I think that's definitely something that needs to be discussed more and needs to be broken down a little bit more for people.
And I think even if you want to go down that angle of taking on the private dining industry, there's still so much untapped market in there. And one thing that in the past year I've been excited to see more of has been how we are taking catering to be a bit more of a display. Yes. So like even I remember when Chef Tucker started his display catering. I think Chef Yo-Yo as well. She does it with her sliders, you know. Yeah. And that aspect is something that works with our our type of casual, but you know, we like to still show off.
Still showy.
And you know, it's not everything has to be fine dining and plated in this, but you know what, I can make this plate of jollof rice, these tacos, these sandwiches, these bread look nice and put together on the plimps with the flowers. I've loved seeing that. So just taking on different angles of where the industry where you can sit.
But like I said, that's really it. It's about knowing that, okay, do you really want to be a fine dining chef, or do you want to, because some of these people say that, back to season 1, if we just take a second and we think back to season 1, something we said a lot in season 1 was words mean things. And I think that everyone forgets that if you say you want to be a fine dining chef, I need to see a fine dining plate. What makes fine dining fine is the plating. The quality and the intricacies of what it is you cook in the kitchen is one thing. How it's presented is really what cements it as a fine dining dish. So,
and the thought process of the ingredients and how you put it together, and why you decided to fuse this with this, and what was that inspiration, that story, the narrative.
But even with like, okay, let's take fusion cuisine and like what I like to call West African fusion, what a lot of people prefer to call Afro-fusion. Not all of that is fine dining.
It's not.
Majority of it is not fine dining, but that is okay. It's about maybe your contemporary chef. Maybe your work is a bit nouveau. Maybe you're just a really good fucking chef. It's not always fine dining.
Agreed.
I think the issue is, as we've mentioned before, we tend to bastardize words in Nigeria, and then they lose their meaning, and then everybody is suddenly a fine dining chef, and every restaurant is a fine dining restaurant, but they're still selling sloppy burgers.
Yeah, agreed. And that's just really it when it comes to like the real business. And I think where a lot of people struggle in our industry here is people just take a leap without really understanding where it is they're going, or where exactly they want to be in, and what story they want to tell. And that's why maybe down the line, couple of months, a year down, you maybe feel burnt out, or you feel lost, or you're constantly comparing yourself to the next person because you didn't start off with that idea of who exactly you are and what exactly you're contributing. So I thought it would just be good to talk about just some of the things that we both came into Nigeria. How many years ago now? I mean, you've been here a couple of years now, so we can say,
just so
you know,
I'm not there yet.
So we've been here a couple of years, and let's use our own careers, our own businesses as a point to be vulnerable about things that we faced coming in and building our business. I mean, we have built a business from scratch, and it's not easy. And what can we share that we feel vulnerable about, that we've had to overcome, that can help someone else as they're going on their story? So I would just say expectations versus reality, really.
Yeah. So I think with me, it's an interesting one, because I came in here with not too much expectation, because the reality was I wasn't starting from scratch, but it felt like I was starting from scratch because I was in a new environment. But one thing I used to say when I did start out was I was starting from experience, because I had the experience of running a food business, a successful one at that. But it was now navigating a new landscape, new systems, completely new way of the way things operate, and figuring out how to adapt.
Yeah.
I think one thing that I've realized is a very great characteristic to have in business is adaptability. The reason people that have been able to be in the industry as long as they have, is because when times have gotten tough or difficult or different to what we're used to, we're able to adapt. Because if you look at what the pandemic did to food businesses across the world, that was also the same time some of the most successful business of today started. So it's like, were you able to adapt?
Yeah.
Use myself as an example. I was doing corporate catering. So when all these offices closed down, there was no way to, so that means my bills weren't getting paid. But I was like, okay, so what do we do now? And I started doing online cook-alongs.
And you could honestly, so many people, what they do, and that's the difference, is some people will sit there and just lament and say, this is happening to me. The industry is happening to me. But what did you do? You looked at it and said, okay, so how do I adapt?
Yeah.
How do I mold?
How do I fit in with what's going on? And I feel like that's why I was able, it was the same thing I did when I got here. I was like, okay, this is how things are happening. This is how people work. How can I fit in? How can I adapt? And there was a lot of adapting that needed to be done because systems do not work the same here. And that was, for lack of a better word, a culture shock to me, because I was like, oh, what do you mean that you guys don't standardize? What do you mean that this isn't the normal thing? But because in as much as, yes, the shock factor was there, but I was also aware of that, okay, so this is how it works here. Let me adapt. Let me fit that into my vision of Nigeria, what it means for me to be here. And I think that the adaptability was definitely a major one for me. I think aside from that, I think it was just being willing to meet people where they're at. So if I have this idea for this extravagant whatever, and then someone says, oh, this is my budget, or this is my, this is a space I have, making sure I'm able to fit into what they are trying to do and not just, it's one thing to have your vision. It's another thing to know that, okay, as solid as my vision is, I can tweak it a little bit. That doesn't mean I'm deviating entirely from what I'm trying to do, but I'm okay with meeting people where they are or the circumstances where they're at to get to that vision. It's another step in the reaching the vision, but it doesn't take away from what the end goal is.
But is there any part of that you struggled with?
All of it. Because I'm a very structured person. So when you're telling me I cannot do things the way I've already planned and structured it, I lose my shit.
Yeah.
There's no
other way.
Yeah,
and
I lose
in
my
this
shit.
country, there's no matter how much you plan, no matter how much you structure,
Nigeria will happen to you.
Yeah.
And so it's that thing of knowing that, okay, no, what you're not going to do when you lose your shit, what you're going to do is accept that this is it and figure out how to move on from that.
Yeah. No, that's fantastic. I think a lot of listeners are going to listen to that and feel inspired and be like, you know what, it is true. I think moldability is important in this industry. In a lot of industries, that's how people sustain themselves in the long run. I think for me, what I struggled with when I was first coming here was, I want to take it more from a brand perspective. I felt when I was doing my private dining in the UK, I could allow my food speak for me more. And I didn't necessarily have to put myself in the forefront as much. I was able to just post my dishes, post reels and videos of what I was cooking, and constantly demand was there, because out there, it's not really, they like to know who you are, but they very much, there's how many people there, they'd rather look at the content that you're actually producing and see, okay, this is a type of food I'm looking for. Okay, this person seems to be doing that. Okay, I've never met this person, I don't know who that is, but this looks great. I will give it a chance. And I felt that was a lot more, that was easy in terms of if you're not someone that is necessarily wanting to be in front of the camera per se, or wanting to be so open or vulnerable with your personality. That was a struggle, because coming here, it's a different story. It's who are you? Like, who are you? Who do you know? Who do I know that knows you? Who can I ask about you to make me feel comfortable in using you? Or how are your numbers online? I mean, it's a real thing. And I struggled with that a lot. Because I felt like my credibility or my experience should talk enough. Where I've been, where the places I've worked, the kind of events or the projects I've worked for, but I can't send my CV to a client here. That's not what they're interested in. They're going to go online and look at your social media presence. They're going to look at how many followers or the buzz that you're getting, because here it's a lot more buzzworthy. And I felt that I had to I had to mold to becoming a bit more online. Okay, I got a social media manager. I got someone to help me with a bit of my public appearance. I've always been good at talking, but I still prefer to be behind the camera. But just being able to be the one to tell my story rather than someone else tell my story for me. And where that I felt was the biggest place where I can say as a business person, if you want to own a business, be ready to fight and struggle is especially when it comes to trying to work with and partner with brands or get collaborations, get sponsorships. It is hard work. It's hard work here because you may have the best story, you may have the best idea, you may feel like you're bringing something that is honestly so different, so unique to the industry, where you know that this is something that can,
that's worthwhile.
But you'll get an email back and say, your numbers are not good enough.
Not good enough.
I'm like, what do you mean? If I give you the invisible numbers of the clients I'm booking behind the scenes, you would say my numbers are big. If you knew the client list I had, you would say the numbers are big enough, but that's not what they care about here.
They care about the vanity metrics.
Till today, I still struggle with getting,
Girl.
sponsors and.
Girl, look at us.
It's hard work, and I think it's important to talk about it.
It really is.
You'll come on an event, and yes, you finally got a sponsor, but no one knows that the hard work it came to begging and why am I begging to show my talent,
my skill? Not even talent. Forget talent. My skill. It's borderline insulting, and it's extremely frustrating. I think we can even use the podcast as an example. It's like, yes, we are not a sensationalist pop culture podcast, but the conversations we are having on here are moving and shaking certain things within the industry. Why, as a brand, you'd say you don't want to be part of that because of numbers is... It's a downer, and you have to have a level of perseverance to be like, well, that doesn't change what I'm trying to do, because it's easy for those things to really tear you down and make you go, well, what's the point? It's easy.
Unfortunately, sometimes we do feel like here, the things that get the attention, the people that get the sponsorships and the amazing brand deals and the endorsements and the favor seem to be the ones that aren't as professionally recognized. Because
what Vanessa is trying to say is that mediocrity
is celebrated.
And that's crazy, because when you look at the level of excellence of certain people's output, and then you look at the empty barrels that are making noise and the people whose work isn't up to par and whose overall ethos is quite mediocre in every sense of the word, because they have the vanity metrics,
or they're able to get buzzworthy trending content out of stupidity,
content and clickbait. It's celebrated and it's accepted, and people buy into it a lot more. And it speaks to society as a whole.
It does.
It speaks to who we are as a people. We like a good show. We like a good performance. We love a bit of drama.
And it doesn't just happen here. It's a worldwide thing. It's global.
But on a professional level, as someone that is trying to grow as a professional person and have a credible status within the industry they're working in, it is disheartening.
Yeah. And to me, that's one of the main things I tell people who want to open businesses. It's going to be, unless you are so strong in your foundation of who you are and what you're trying to achieve, it's going to be very easy for you to want to adapt to becoming something that you may not have respected for yourself.
Yeah.
So it's a longer game. It's a long marathon for people like us, and you're going to have some events where you're not going to be able to sell out. I think you had
it's my round table has 8 seats. And there are some days I've not sold 8 seats, but God is in control.
But if we brought every single chef out here that owns a business and asked them to be honest,
they'd say the same.
We'll all say the same thing. We have been 2 days before our event, we are going around begging people. You know what? I'll buy you a seat if you can just fill the space. We've all been there, because it's not easy to own it. Like, sometimes the industry is like this. When you're owning a business in this place, it's not constant. You don't, one time you have an event and you're sold out 2 days, and it's an amazing feeling.
Yeah, you get gas and you drop the next one.
The next one is crickets. It's crickets, and then it's just an important reality of it. And I think it's great that we can actually just be open and say,
open and honest about it. Yeah.
Even the people that you look up to, we're still struggling.
I think another thing is, I think I've been lucky in just by how I carry myself and how I, kind of bulldoze into places and just take what I feel like is mine. But one thing that is hard, and it is something that kind of knocks on me sometimes is networking. Because sometimes it's like, okay, oh, this PR place is always doing these events and I really want to go there, but nobody's invited me. You can't just show up. You don't know where where they're planning those things. And it's like, you then have to realize that you have to be really intentional about going out of your way to meet people and have the right conversations. And even knowing that, it's still hard to do because sometimes you're just not up for it. And the thing with our society is, and that's where some of these business deals are made, in those
rooms,
clubs, those rooms, those, whether it's members clubs or these meetings of high society and all that kind of shit. And it's just like, okay, fine. I know that that's where it's happening. How do I get in? No one wants to tell you how you get in. Sometimes you do get in and then you're frozen because it's like, what do I say? How do I make sure I say the right thing? And it's all these kind of hoops you have to jump through for something that if someone just gave you one chance, 2 minutes, I will show you that I'm worthwhile.
Yeah.
But then you have to do this. It's almost like a performance to get to what you know you're deserving of. And that in itself, I feel like the overarching theme here is a lot of the things you're going to meet are disheartening. They're going to knock on your confidence, and you really have to be strong-willed if you want to make it in this industry.
I mean, sometimes you're your only spokesperson, no one else is speaking for you. No one else is gassing you up. You have to, no matter where you are, if it's shopping in the shopping complex and you're just talking to someone, or you go online and send someone a DM. I've literally reached out to someone who I see at these events. I just said, look, how can I, it'll be good. I'd love to, someone that you have a relationship with or something, just ask them like, oh, how would you get in? Or can you take me one time? Just, invite me to take me with you as your +1. And from there, build that content, make that content. So it seemed like you were part of in that class.
But that's another thing. It's about what you said about social media, about sometimes you might not have even made it into the event. Maybe you were just at the entrance, but just the content. It's always about the perception of things. Perception is a big deal in our society as a whole. And it's important to note that the things that we're talking about are definitely things that permeate other industries, but the bottom line is it's based on how our society has been molded. So perception is a major thing. So even if it's a thing that you're at this place for 2 minutes and you can just get that one clip and take that one picture where it's like, oh, she goes to these places, or she was there, and how was that? Oh, could you come? And you never know it. That's how it starts.
Your favorite TikToker, your favorite social media icon, that's how. Till this day, they're still moving sometimes that way. They can't necessarily be there for 2 hours, or you think that I've heard social media followers with 20,000, 30,000, 100,000 even talk about how sometimes they've had to go to events where they thought they should have been paid for or whatever. They didn't get what they were deserving. But sometimes, because you look at what that event can do for you, sometimes you just have to take that and just say, you know what, I'm going to make this work for me. Even if I'm stepping there for 2 minutes, I'm going to get whatever angles I need so that my content is moving. And it's a tough thing when people like us who are so integrity driven, it's a balance of saying, how do you go from that social media fake it till you make it to feeling inauthentic?
Yeah.
That's the struggle I constantly play with, because I want to be as real as possible. I want you to come to me and say, I deserved this, But sometimes I know I deserve it. I don't feel fake, but
you have to put your ego
aside. I still have to hustle it and, make the content show.
That's a big reality. You see that content thing is even the same with like dinners. Some dinners are not successful and you still film like you've sold out. You will still film like you have sold out and everything has gone well, because it could be that video that someone is going to see that's going to say, okay, I want to book you for this thing.
Exactly.
They don't need to know that there were only 4 people on that table.
I'll give you a story right now. When I was starting, I invited some people over. I said, look, come to my house. Let's cook a 4-course meal. Did the content. You posted like it was a private event. So, and people will book you from that event. Do people know what you did behind it? Or do they know that it cost you? Do they?
Yeah.
These are things that not unfortunate. Sometimes I think it's humbling. It's a good exercise.
It's very important.
It's a good exercise, but these are things that people do. Unfortunately, it's part of the job when it comes to owning a business, or especially when it comes to private dining or being a private chef, because your business is backed by your name or your presence. So you have to really be creative in how to make sure social media is working for you. But there are social media pressures, and the one advice I can give to anyone who wants to do this game again is just really understanding your brand story, your narrative, and ensuring that you can pull in all the different angles to ensure that story is amplified. Whether it's things that you have to pay for yourself, whether it's attaching yourself to the right events or businesses, get as much content as possible, because that content is gold. It's always going to be gold. You know, even if you feel it's not perfect to post it. Yeah, that's one thing I would say.
Oh, that one
it's hard.
Too. Sometimes it's like, and that's why like I don't do my social content anymore. I let them tell me like, oh, we're gonna post this, and I'm like, oh, but why? Oh, that's a bit cringe, or this is. But then when they post it and it does numbers, I'm like, oh, my bad. Maybe that's why that's not my work, because you have to be able to take advice from people that know how these things work.
Yeah.
Whether it's like you're paying them to do it or you're just asking them for their advice, heed to it, because when I took on my social content team, I remember, or my digital marketing team before they dragged me, I remember they'd say they want to post certain things. I was like, oh, so like, for instance, one thing you can never get me to do is dance on the internet. There is nothing.
I've danced on the internet. I was abused.
There is nothing you can do and be like, oh, so when I see certain people that would get on and will do the little jiggy, I'm like, God forbid. But I get that there's sometimes you need to do those things that otherwise you'd be like, fuck that. You could never get me to do that. One day they will get you. One day the money will be enough. One day the reason, there will be something that will justify it, and you're really going to have to put that ego aside and go, cool, let's do it. Let's go.
Exactly. I want to just tiptoe this off. You know, I think we've spent a good amount of time talking about social media and online, but I think it's very important to also discuss what works offline, because one thing I would definitely say is that my strategies for what I want to achieve online are completely different to what I achieve offline. The kind of people I attract online are completely different to who I attract offline.
Yeah.
So online, I look at things like brand partnerships or the organizations, media collaborations, things for my public events. But offline, I have a completely different client list. And one thing I wanted to say to myself when I started was I already had a vision of who I wanted to be my bread and butter of my business. Yeah. And that was a little bit more of a quieter group of people, the HNIs, the families who don't necessarily care about all the noise, but they have the wallets. Yeah. You know, at the end of the day, who's paying for my business is my private clients. And even though I would take those bookings completely different, because I'm not going to come with 5 cameramen to showcase, because you're going into their homes, you're going into intimate spaces. They don't want to be filmed either, you know, so it's a completely different experience. It's a completely different output. And the service I give offline, I ensure that what I've said my mission and vision for my business is in terms of the customer service and the offering and the offering I'm giving is extremely clear to those people, because at the end of the day, and I'll say this again, yes, my Instagram is important. Yes, the followers are important, but 90% of my bookings do not come from Instagram. They come from word of mouth. Oh, I got your number from so-and-so. Can you do this event for me? And that can only work if I'm very consistent in the level of service I'm providing. That is not clickbait to me. That is actually the bread and butter.
Yeah, no, that's, I think that was one thing that I did learn, word of mouth, in as much as, yes, the social, so like contrasts. In the UK, for me, it was from my website. You know, if you're a corporate company, you're going to look at, which website, you're going to go to Google, corporate catering. Things are going to come out. Like, nobody Googles anything here like that. So it's, whereas over there, it was like, okay, as long as my online presence, my website is, now if I invest in a website, it's not for my Nigerian clients, it's for my international clients, because I still want to kind of have international exposure. But here, it was realizing that it's word of mouth. outside of the bookings that come through online, it's really word of mouth. So making sure that even if it is a client you've gotten from online, you give the level of excellence that you know you're capable of giving, so that when they are talking, when they eat, we're thinking of doing it. I ate it. And that's it. And they will call you off the bat. Because it's like, it's a no-brainer for them. And it's even just the way people are then able to explain it, to speak to you about someone. There's something in you just saying, oh, I'm thinking of doing a dinner. Someone just starts singing your praises.
Exactly.
It's a no-brainer. Like, okay, they have said you are, especially if it's someone that people trust their word.
Exactly.
And a lot of people, their word is their bond in certain circles. So it's so important that whatever you do it in a way that when somebody is speaking of it to another person, the person that they're speaking to, it would be criminal of them to not go ahead with you because of how well they've spoken of you.
Exactly.
Realizing that word of mouth was a big thing was a very interesting one for me.
Yeah. And no matter what, no matter how big you get online, or let's say you trend, you buzz, you now become the celebrity chef that everyone knows you to be, you're providing a service.
Yeah.
And if I'm a paying customer, I don't really care if you have 500 million followers and what you're going to post online. It's what are you providing to what I'm paying for, and that's important. So you have to understand that there is the other side of the coin as well, and ensuring that you're investing in both avenues of online and offline.
Okay, I think that was great. So I think we should do this. Let's do two. If you had to give advice to yourself of 5 years ago, so to the V that was just coming to Nigeria, what would you tell yourself?
Don't limit yourself. Try it all.
Oh shit, you said what I was going to say.
Did I? But yeah, that would be my advice. I mean, I think we can talk about experience and gaining experience and ensuring that you're working in certain rooms with certain people. But I would also say when you're at the beginning of your business is your opportunity to trial and error, and don't be afraid of starting something and not succeeding. We are all masters of something. We're all failures of something at the same time. It's the opportunity to try. You don't want to come down 5-10 years later and be like, oh, I wish I tried that, or I wish I was a bit more bold, or I wish I was able to take, just take that on. And sometimes that's how you learn about yourself even more, when you said, you know what, I tried it, didn't like it.
Yeah. I think I would say to myself of just going on 3 years ago, the woman that was about to get on that plane with not a single foggiest idea of what she was going to do, that just do it. It sounds so very cliche, but that thing that you're thinking of, that you're like, oh, maybe I'm gonna do, just fucking do it. And I say that because in hindsight, I remember when I was moving here, there were certain things that I wrote down that I wanted to do that I'm now doing. And I didn't do it immediately, but I went through the process of, I need to be X, Y, just fucking do it.
Just start.
Do it. And then in the doing of it, the systems will come. The structure will come, and you'll be so happy that you did it then and you didn't wait till maybe somebody else has proven whatever your idea is to be viable. Because then it then looks like you've copied someone and you're following somebody else. Whereas you've had this and you've been sitting on it for so long.
Yeah.
Just fucking do it.
That is deep. And I would say it applies to so many things for people. And if you have a business idea, I think it's inspiring me now too, because I told you in the last episode, I'm growing and I'm sowing new seeds, and I sometimes find myself procrastinating because I'm trying to wait for this perfect time, or for the finances, we're all waiting for the finances. But sometimes just
do it.
Start with what you have, and it will grow, it will evolve. It's not going to start as a fruit. Sometimes it is just a seed.
A seed, yeah. It's one single leaf, and it grows into a big fucking tree. Okay. Second part of that is, what advice would you give to someone who is thinking of starting or becoming a private chef, or is just fresh out of culinary school and is trying to figure out what their next steps are? I'm going to say mine first.
You do yours first.
Just in case. My thing is, I've said it in this episode at some point, but my thing is sit down with yourself and write out your vision and make sure it's very, very, very clear to you and it's deeply rooted in who you authentically are. Because I think when you have a solid vision and you understand that, okay, this is my vision, this vision is what I want for myself, it is easier for you to stand your ground when you put yourself out there. So the brand that you then build for yourself is aligned with this vision. The work that you are taking on is aligned with the vision. The clients you attract are aligned with the vision because your vision is so clear that it is your driving force.
Yeah.
Your driving force is not, oh, this other chef did this, let me quickly package. It is, okay, this chef did that, but it doesn't align with my vision. Everyone is saying I should do that. No. And that's fucking okay. Because what then happens when you're trying to do what other people are doing is that you miss out on the things that align with your vision. And then your vision has to change because you're too far. It's now no longer in reach, but it's a vision you created for yourself. Focus on your vision and make sure that your vision is solid, rock solid as a rock. I'm so annoyed that I sang that. The way my intrusive thoughts come out. But yes, make sure your vision is, stay locked into your own vision. That is what I would say.
That's fantastic advice. If I was to add to that, I would say experience and experience. I think it's so important to never think that you have learnt everything, or that just because you're fresh out of a training or a school that you are ready. You can gather experience from so many avenues, and yes, you can go and intern, you can go work for someone, you can just sit in kitchens and just work with other people and just get your creative juices flowing. I just think experience, and never stop learning. I'm constantly learning, and when I open myself to teachings and words and context and readings, it helps me creatively even more. It helps me possess new ideas and think about ways of doing things that I may not have thought of before. So if I was prideful to say that I know it all, I probably would be stagnant. So experience allows you to evolve.
That's great. That was really fucking good. This was a great conversation.
It was.
It's a very good conversation. So we are now heading into our favorite segment, the one bite segment. This one is an interesting one. It is, okay, it might be a little bit shady, but the shade is not directed at anyone. It's just going to sound a bit snooty. But I think there is a fine line between culinary innovation and taking the piss. And a lot of you, a lot of people are straddling real hard that line of taking the piss. And don't get me wrong, I understand that in order for new ideas to come about, you have to think outside the box. I think there's thinking outside of the box and there is dashing the box away. And you man are throwing the box far away. I think the beauty of culinary innovation is that it takes culinary techniques, methods, different cuisines into consideration, and it allows for them to evolve and develop in a way that doesn't take away from the art form of culinary arts. But there are some people that are just waking up and saying, you know what, today I'm going to put some soil in the blender with a little bit of this, that, and the other. And then I'm going to turn it into a swallow, and then I'm going to make a soup out of something. You have to try this. No, I don't, because I really would like to stay alive. So there's a fine line, and I think we need to understand what is culinary innovation and what is taking the piss. What's your take? What's your bite?
My bite is this. Butchie makes the crimes you have done is enough. That's my bite. On a serious note, we can't blame the brand.
No, it's not the brand's
it's
fault.
not the brand's fault, but there are things that are being celebrated and instigated, and I think sometimes we just have to say enough is enough. I've seen some horrors online, and I just don't want to feel like it takes away the opportunity for real culinary innovation to be celebrated. And, you know, I don't need to see a whole chicken being blended with all sorts of things to make chicken bone swallow. I don't need to see apple slices being eaten with okra soup.
Well, you posted one with somebody eating it with egusi, and I'm not gonna lie to you, I feel like apples and egusi would slap. Just saying. I'm gonna try it and get back to you on that though.
Come back with a
Just saying.
highly educative and professional take on it, and I will listen, because there's always, like we said, there is a balance, there's a line, and I do think everyone that has innovated something has been abused at some point.
Yeah.
So that's not what I'm saying. It's how it's being done.
Done. Yeah. If it's like, oh, I've tested this recipe multiple times and I've developed it and I've and it's gone through these processes and this was how it looked the first time and this is it now and now I feel like this is a dish worth presenting to the world, then yes, we hear it. If it's I set up my tripod and my lights and I pulled out my buchi mix and I put everything I found in my cupboard, fridge and behind the sofa inside the blender, then
we have a problem.
We have a problem. But that's just our one bites.
So, on that note, episode 2 done. We hope you enjoyed this episode. We hope that we brought you some relatable insights, something to think about and go home with, and just know that we have your backs. You know, we are open, we are honest, we are transparent.
And we hope that our advice has imparted some kind of knowledge on you that would allow you to navigate whatever it is you're pursuing with a little more intentionality. And with that being said, you can, as always, find every single episode on YouTube and all podcast streaming platforms.
So make sure to like, follow, subscribe, comment, do all that jazz by following us at onebitepod_. You can find us on Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, YouTube. And thank you to our venue sponsors, Miele, for giving us this beautiful space to chat.
And we also want to thank our season 2 sponsors, the Bodega Emporium and Circa Lagos, for supporting our vision. And you should go and have a meal there and tell them One Bite Podcast brought you there.
We are happily taking commission. That's a joke. So, we're looking forward to dishing it out with you.
One bite
at a time.